Hey everyone, exactly who or what were the Nephilim? Were they fallen angels? Were they giants? Let's find out. Shalom everybody, and welcome to Beit Tefillah. I thought I'd pop out of retirement and do a few more videos, as I still get asked quite a few questions on different topics that made me realize I don't have standalone videos on those topics. So I'm going to make a few over the next few months, and we're going to get started with this one. The topic for this video is, exactly who are the Nephilim? Contrary to popular belief, the Nephilim from Genesis 6:4 are not fallen angels, aliens, or even giants. Let's get into it and read Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward when the sons of Elohim came into the daughters of men and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, the men of name. I just read that verse from the ISR version, which has the Hebrew Nephilim, when most all other translations use the word giants instead. The problem with that is Nephilim in Hebrew doesn't mean giants. Nephilim is a plural word from the singular nephel, which means one who fell. It comes from the Hebrew nephal, which means to fall, so Nephilim simply means the fallen ones. This isn't as in fallen from heaven like fallen angels, but rather as fallen into sin or fallen from God's favor. The word giant is nowhere in the definition. A lot of people incorrectly assume they were fallen angels that mated with human women. This is ridiculous. We assumed for quite a long time that the idea of fallen angels was strictly a pagan and Greek belief, but if you study, and you can even look it up on Google, that the concept of fallen angels did not probably originate in Greece. It primarily comes from Jewish and Christian traditions, with the most prominent stories appearing in the phony book of Enoch. The fact is that the idea of angels mating with women is pagan. Is just about as pagan as it gets, that there are gods from space coming down and mating with mortal women to make demigods or super people. No. Notice in Genesis 6:4 it said those were the mighty men who were of old, the men of name. Men in that verse comes from the Hebrew word ish, which simply means man or men. Angel or messenger comes from the Hebrew word malach, which we don't find in Genesis chapter 6. In fact, we don't hear that word at all. It's not used at all in the Tanakh until we get up to Genesis chapter 16. Genesis 6:2, the sons of Elohim, or God, saw the daughters of men that they were good. We need to remember that the Hebrew Elohim can also refer to human kings or men in positions of authority, because Elohim doesn't really mean God. It means one in authority, one in a position of power and authority. A good example of that is Exodus 7:1, where God was talking to Moses and he said, "See, I have made you an Elohim to Pharaoh." Well, God wasn't making Moses Pharaoh's God. He was putting Moses in a position of power or authority over Pharaoh. Modern Jewish translations may translate the Hebrew B'nai Elohim as sons of rulers instead of sons of God as well. In Exodus 4:22, thus says Yehovah, Yisra'el is my son, my firstborn. The sons of Elohim in Genesis 6:1 were human. They weren't angels. So Nephilim are not fallen angels. All right, here's another issue. Some make a comparison to grasshoppers and say that the Israelites were in the same size proportion to the Canaanites as regular men would be to grasshoppers. They get this from Numbers 13:33. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. So they think that the Israelites were like the size of grasshoppers compared to the Nephilim. Let's examine that. Let's say, for math's sake, round it up, that a grasshopper would be 1 inch tall. Now that's a pretty big grasshopper, but let's just say, to make it simple, be 1 inch tall, and the average size man is 6 feet or 72 inches tall, so that would make the average size man 72 times the size of a grasshopper. So in order to get that math right with the Nephilim, you would have to multiply 6 feet times 72 to get the height of the Nephilim. That's going to put them at like 430 some feet. That's insane. The tallest dinosaur ever thought to exist is a Sauroposeidon, which grew to an estimated mature height of just over 60 feet tall. So these people are suggesting that these Nephilim would be over 7 times the size or the height of that giant dinosaur. Genesis 6:4, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward when the sons of Elohim came into the daughters of men and they bore children to them. So with this size comparison, some people think these Nephilim were mating with regular sized women? Alrighty then. Let me try and make this a little simpler. Let's remember that the scriptures were written basically to people in an agrarian society, farmers. They were pretty much farmers. Picture what grasshoppers or locusts do to farmers, okay? They cover the land and eat everything in a plague situation, right? So now put yourself in the place of the people of Canaan, looking out over the desert in the wilderness and seeing the people from Yisra'el coming towards them. There's about 1 million of them, the people. And with these people are herds. There's donkeys, probably camels and sheep and goats and maybe cattle, and here they come. And the people have to eat, and the animals are grazing. Imagine all that they would all need to eat. Think of how many mouths that is to feed. So the whole group would have been like grasshoppers or a plague of locusts in their eyes. Does that make sense? It's written that the Pharaoh Ramesses II compared the armies of the Hittites to locusts, where it's recorded, they covered the mountain and valleys and were like locusts in their multitude. Multitude, not size. Let's read this verse from Genesis 28:1. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and commanded him and said to him, do not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Was Isaac telling Jacob not to marry one of those women because they were giants? No, that's ridiculous. They were a fallen people, fallen into sin, fallen out of favor from the eyes of Elohim due to their disobedience and their wickedness. Let's read a few more verses with the word giant in them. Deuteronomy 2:10-11. The Emites had dwelt there formerly, a people as great and numerous and as tall as the Anakim. They were also reckoned as giants, like the Anakim, but the Moabites called them Emites. 2 Samuel 21:15-16. And the Philistines were fighting against Yisra'el, so David and his servants went down and fought against the Philistines. David was weary, and Ishbi-benob, who was one of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose bronze spear was 300 pieces. 2 Samuel 21:20-22. And there was a battle in Gath again, and there was a man of great height who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number. And he also was descended from the giants. And he reproached Yisra'el, and Jonathan the son of Shimei, the brother of David, struck him. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. Those passages said giants 4 times in those verses. However, the word giant in those verses was not translated from the Hebrew word Nephilim. It was translated from the word Rapha. Clearly, this is 2 different Hebrew words with different meanings, but with the same English word or definition. A lot of confusion can come during translation when translators aren't either very good or they put the same word for 2 different words or definitions, and this is how you get some big problems with understanding and why people think that Nephilim were giants. So just to be clear, I do believe of giants as spoken of in the Tanakh. They just were not the Nephilim. Nowhere in the definition of the Hebrew word Nephilim do we find giants. It's just not in there. You may find it in today's Christian references or concordances as it's based on mistranslation and their understanding of the word's definition. But it's not accurate. Remember just how long people lived back in those days. I mean, Methuselah lived to be almost 1,000, didn't he? Nephilim were simply men who were old, just like the verse says. Or they lived a very long time. They may have walked with God when they were younger, but had fallen away, nafal, from their obedience to his word, and were just grabbing wives of whoever they wanted and mating and having kids with them. They were having evil thoughts continually, just as it is written. Like I said, we read that there were giants in Scripture, such as Goliath. I'm sure we all remember the story of Goliath. He was a true giant, yeah. But this isn't what was being referred to in the Nephilim in Genesis chapter 6. And I know quite a few people are going to have problems with what I said because it's hard to release our traditions, beliefs, and English translation of the word giants. It's kind of, people kind of romanticize the word Nephilim, and they come up, oh, it's scary fallen angels, or they were aliens, and they were, no, that's silly. It said they were men. They were human men, okay? Many of us did believe for a long time that the Nephilim were fallen angels. You know, after we see the truth, sometimes it takes additional prayer and further study to be able to accept it. You know, we all believed a lot of things for a very long time. It's hard to get rid of those thoughts and ideas and images in our head. But we'd rather carefully replace our religion's incorrect doctrines and see where that humility can lead us. Because that's what it takes, is to humble ourselves, read the Word, see what it says, and get rid of what is false. Well, that's all I have for this video today. Thanks for watching, everyone, and being a part of Beit Tefillah. Please give a thumbs up to this video and sub to our channel if you haven't done so yet. A shout out and a shalom to all who are Yisra'el and scattered worldwide in the dispersion. Everybody be blessed and have a wonderful day.